Thanks, Eva. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to be back at Deutsche Bank in Paris. Somewhat mistakenly, I think I came 2 years ago with Alan Jope, and you had two Scotsmen, and we decided to make a joke about the European Championships. Now you've got a Scotsman and a Dutchman, and all I can say is, with the World Cup starting, we're 100% focused on the business because we have no interest in the World Cup whatsoever. So look, I'm really pleased to be here with Kees. Kees is the president of our home care division, but prior to taking on that job quite recently, he had 6 years as the president of our business in North America, and he has loads of experience before that running our business in Brazil and in South Africa, so lots of good geographic exposure as well. I'm going to start by revisiting the sort of core competitive advantages of Unilever and how we are building on them for today and also for the future. I'll then hand over to Kees, who's going to try and bring those topics a little bit to life for you through the lens of the home care division. First of all, the usual safe harbor statement. I'll bounce over that. So for those of you that might be a little bit less familiar with the Unilever story, I'll start with this slide that we've used many, many times before, and it just sets out the core strengths of Unilever. First of all, we've got a portfolio of strong, purpose-led global brands and iconic local jewels, with 85% of our turnover in that really key #1 or #2 position within each category. Secondly, our geographic footprint. As I hope you know, nearly 60% of our business is in attractive emerging markets, and we expect that to increase further given the rapid population growth in those markets. There's another 300 million people, that's another USA, added to those markets as soon as 2021. More people are going to enter the middle income bracket, driving up consumption, and there'll be more people living in cities with more kitchens and bathrooms for Unilever brands to clean. Emerging markets have been and will continue to be simply fundamental to our growth, and a key part of our investment case is the access that we provide to the attractive growth vector of the emerging markets with a little bit less of the inherent volatility because of that wide country diversity that we have. Third, I always highlight the breadth and the depth of our distribution. We reach 2.5 billion consumers every day, and we do that through 30 million outlets. And we also have relatively broad channel exposure that we continue to invest behind and to develop even further. And last but not least, our people. We have a unique global local organization, and our combination of global diversity and deep local expertise gives us, we think, a powerful advantage when it comes to gathering up insights and developing strong and consumer-relevant innovation. Now, these strengths are, of course, a really great platform, but there's no doubt that the pace of change is accelerating. And in this environment, resilience and agility and a plan to address future challenges and opportunities is just absolutely key. And that's why we continue to evolve our business model, most recently with the implementation of Connected for Growth, which allows us to operate at scale still, but with greater speed and agility, helping us keep pace with those changes in our markets. Now, we've got a really clear point of view on what is changing and how it impacts our business model. Consumer preferences are much more diverse, so we need a broader range of products and services. Media and sales channels are fragmented, so we need to be faster and more agile and create new capability to harness what is actually a huge opportunity to get closer to our consumers on more relevant occasions. Inevitably, that increases complexity and price transparency, so we're also going to need to work smarter to ensure that we balance differentiation with complexity and continue that journey to take costs out of our business where the consumer isn't prepared to pay for it. And the value chain is changing with much more third-party manufacturing, more automation, and a lot more collaboration across the value chain. Now, these changes create opportunities for both global and local players. In most markets, the time period between having an idea and launching a product has compressed. It really has shortened, putting a premium on speed and making the win and loss much more binary. Local players in the aggregate have been gaining share. The key to their success has been their ability to respond to trends effectively with speed. However, it's extremely important to unpick this and look down beneath the aggregate. A large number of these smaller local players come and go. Only a very few manage to build critical mass in the particular segment that they're playing in, and only around 20% of those players are successful in managing to grow their businesses consistently over time. Now, this doesn't mean that we can ignore them, and it certainly doesn't mean that we can be complacent. And although we've always been the most distinctively, I think, the most distinctively local global player, we're significantly adapting our business model in reaction to this. What we're trying to do is make sure that our own local brands have the space and the capability to thrive more often and more successfully. And we're trying to make sure that our global brands can participate in fast-paced, trend-led segments with much, much greater success. Now, with so much change going on, it's really easy to focus only on that. But the fundamental principles haven't changed, especially what we call rule number 1 of the Unilever Consumer Goods Playbook, which is that it's all about growth and that penetration drives growth most effectively. And this has been underscored by the latest Kantar World Panel report, which was published a couple of weeks ago and that the chart refers to. Now, the Kantar analysis, if you haven't come across it before, covers 1 billion households across over 40 countries. It really is very, very comprehensive. And they look at a mighty 350 billion shopper decisions to see how many times a brand was chosen by consumers in 2017. 90% of the brands that increased the number of shopper decisions did so by attracting new households. The median single country increase in penetration across all growing brands in the survey was 1.5% in markets where volumes were virtually flat. And the report also showed that scale still matters. Mid and large-sized brands saw the highest penetration gains thanks to stronger mental availability, memory structures, if you like, and stronger physical availability, such as shelf positioning and more prominent promotions. Our portfolio of strong global and local brands sets us up well in this context and gives us unrivaled consumer reach. In fact, the Kantar study shows that our brands, Unilever's brands, are chosen 36 billion times every year. That's three times the amount of our next nearest competitor. Despite this strong position, we like to keep a healthy degree of paranoia across our business, and we're far, far from complacent, as I said. I want to use the time today to explain, first of all, why we believe that our business model drives superior growth. I want to set out how we're adapting that model and how we're leveraging digital, and why we are confident that we can deliver a 20% margin by 2020. Kees, as I said, will then bring that to life through the lens of home care. Our first priority is to develop our markets. That means to encourage more users, more usage, and to deliver more benefits. I'll demonstrate how our model works with one of our most successful, and in fact, our second largest brand, which is Dove. Now, Dove is available in 140 countries across the world, and it's increased its global penetration by more than 3% over the last 3 years. To put this in context, globally, the median increase in global penetration for growing brands in 2017 was just 0.2%. Now, Dove's success has been driven by a strong purpose that we crafted and communicated for over 60 years. That's inviting women to embrace their own unique beauty. And in the current day and age, when consumers value brands that do more, this creates really great opportunities. For example, based on a survey across our top 5 markets, up to 94% of consumers agreed that they would want to purchase more Dove products once they knew about the Dove Self-Esteem Project. It's also been helped by an expansion of the portfolio. We've built a broad range of products across beauty and personal care, including expanding and innovating in new areas, be it premium ranges like the Dove Derma series, range extensions like the launch of face care in China, or entering an entirely new category like Dove Men & Care or Dove Baby. All of this has helped the brand grow, on average, 8% per year since 2011. It's a trailblazing brand, and it's a true success story. Dove is just one, and to be honest, admittedly, it's perhaps the best example we have, but it is a beacon in our business that gives us confidence, and it gives us a model that we can replicate across the other brands within our portfolio. Underpinning our ability to develop our markets is innovation. And over the last few years, we've changed our innovation process quite significantly. We've embedded R&D, research and development, into the divisions, helping us match technologies to consumer trends much earlier and at greater scale. We've differentiated the process for global and local launches, ensuring that all of our markets have activities that are big enough to meet key trends. Our three divisions have sharpened strategies and are very well placed to compete. Local country category business teams, as we call them, have helped us bring much more focus to key sales, allowing us to deliver the global innovations with more speed and scale, but also, very importantly, responding more quickly to local trends. The 50 brand communities that we now established allow us to scale local insights and speed up the adoption of global initiatives. And bringing channel focus much earlier into the innovation process is allowing us to differentiate across channels to meet different shopper missions. Our so-called 70-20-10 framework gives us a simple and a disciplined way to manage and develop our portfolio. The framework is well understood now by everybody in the business. It means that 70% of our innovations are global, carefully crafted by the divisions and rolled out at scale. 20% of our innovations adapt our global brands for local and regional trends, led by the local teams in collaboration with the divisions. And the remaining 10% or so are innovations on local brands owned and managed in our markets, in the front line of our business, in our countries. We've differentiated the decision rights on this process. Resource allocation is differentiated, and the process for the global 70, the 20, and the 10 are different. It's our responsibility, though, to do the 70% well first by rolling out superior global technology and insights. Then, after that, we have the freedom to work on the other 30%, responding to unique local needs, which may go on, of course, to be future global trends. This approach helps us compete more effectively with all players, whether they happen to be global or local. It also allows us to address and drive the trends in our categories, helping us to grow markets and move our portfolio into the more attractive segments faster. We've created 6 new brands last year organically, and we're going to create many, many more this year and beyond. We've increased the number of local innovations by about 50%, and we've shortened the time from idea to launch of a local innovation, to between 3 and 6 months. That's really much faster than we were able to do it under the old framework. And our global teams have been freed up through that to focus on delivering bigger bet innovations with more scale. The real strength of the model, however, is that local insights get shared much more effectively and faster than ever before. Local jewels that were previously only in one market are being rolled out to new markets. Take the example of Lakme, which is our color cosmetics brand in India, which recently launched in Indonesia, or swapping the geographies, Citra, which is a naturals brand from Indonesia that just launched in India. Increasingly as well, local adaptations of global brands get picked up and scaled by the global team. The example here is Cif Duo, which was actually created by the Italian team and has now been rolled out to more than 15 markets. In some cases, smaller local players have served as a source of innovation for us. Halo Top in the US is a really good example of that. Frankly, we missed the trend in the US for low-calorie, high-protein ice cream, and our response, which is Breyer's Delight, came too late in that market. However, using our scale, we've been able to roll Breyer's Delight out to 9 markets in Europe within 3 months. So even if we miss a trend in one market from time to time, we can still catch it globally. What this means ultimately is that our global innovation pipeline gets stronger. And we complement this, as you know, with bolt-on acquisition strategy that allows us to change our portfolio faster. Turning to how we're adapting our total business model. Over the last 50 years, the traditional competitive advantages of mass marketing and mass manufacturing put up quite high barriers to entry and led to consolidation of consumer goods players. However, the rise of technology now allows smaller players to connect to third-party everything, whether that's R&D, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's sales, whether it's brand content. And this means traditional competitive advantages are shifting. We need to adapt accordingly. And as I've already described, Connected for Growth, or C4G, has made our business model simpler, faster, and more agile. So I won't spend any more time on that. But I would like to cover two other important changes. First, the scalable deployment of technology across our business. And secondly, far, far greater collaboration with our network of partners, not just in our supply chain, but beyond that. Technology changes the way that we understand and engage with consumers. There is more data out there than ever before. Understanding this data and acting on it unlocks huge opportunities for us to be more targeted and more personal. We're uniquely positioned due to the breadth and depth of our portfolio and our channel footprint, and that allows us to pick up richer consumer profiles. We combine our brand and consumer data with transactional data from key retail partners, first-party and second-party data coming together, and we mesh that. And using that data, we build out a model of precision or performance marketing, which is all about leveraging data to engage with our consumers in the most efficient and effective way with higher sales conversion. But we're also using technology much, much more broadly than just for data and digital media and precision marketing. We have 30 technology platforms now across Unilever which power our business. We've automated over 250 processes, helping to increase speed and reduce cost. And this has already saved us 120,000 hours, and we're increasingly using tools like artificial intelligence to optimize our consumer-facing and back-of-house activities. We've built natural language processing capability for our general trade sales effectiveness and analytics platform, Leverage. With AI, we're now able to translate the data into written recommendations for the field sales force, and that allows them to maximize their sales call effectiveness. Turning to third-party partnerships, the Partner to Win program in our supply chain has opened up networks to drive more open innovation and more third-party manufacturing, allowing us to crash the cycle times for local launches and bring more benefits into our global launches. A lot of product innovation has actually already been invented elsewhere. So by collaborating more effectively with third parties, we can connect existing technologies to our own ideas, increasing both flexibility and increasing speed. Finally, let me turn to how we will deliver our 20% margin target whilst growing and investing to build out those all-important future capabilities. Gross margin will deliver a substantial share of our margin progression. We start from a lower base, as you know, than many of our peers, and therefore we have the headroom to grow our margins sustainably as we develop our portfolio. Since 2012, we've been building a model to max the mix with disproportionate investment behind margin-accretive segments and formats, as well as a general rule of thumb that 75% of our innovations should be margin-accretive. There are big opportunities across all three of our divisions to continue to drive mix in their businesses. More recently, we've rolled out the 5S program across our business. 5S is a holistic program. It's about pricing, it's about mix, it's about buying, it's about partnering, it's about how we source our products and how we design our products. On that latter point, we apply it across our categories, but we also make structured interventions like our Design to Value initiative. You know, it's pretty easy to cut the cost out of a product, but it's difficult to do it without affecting product quality and the fundamental functionality or the consumer experience. What Design to Value does is it helps us to understand the product attributes that are most important for our consumers and those, frankly, that are less relevant. It looks at the end-to-end supply chain cost, from raw materials to distribution, and it allows us to take cost out without affecting and often even improving the product experience and product quality. And this ensures that we deliver our gross margin improvements in a sustainable way and often unlocks a little bit better growth as well. We've also made 3 structural changes to our business model that allow us to be more efficient and faster to redirect inefficient cost. And this allows more of our savings to drop down to the bottom line. The simpler business model that we've put in place with Connected for Growth has allowed us to take out unnecessary duplication and debate and increase empowerment within our business. And whilst the key objective of C4G is to drive growth, it's also helped us to reduce costs. In 2017, we reduced the number of middle and senior managers by around 15%. Alongside C4G, we also implemented zero-based budgeting, ZBB, It's now very well embedded in Unilever, and as I've explained before, but it really is still delivering really new ideas and new energy behind a focus on more effective investment of the resources in the company. An area we don't talk about enough is ETS, which stands for our Enterprise and Technology Solutions team. It's basically Global Business Services and IT in Unilever. That was set up to enable our business with technology whilst also ensuring that our processes and activities are shared and scaled across the business. And that helps us to improve operational effectiveness through simpler and more consistent processes at lower cost. And if you bring all of that together, the 20% target is in essence an output from all of those activities, although it is being implemented in a differentiated way across the 3 divisions. Resourcing decisions are taken in line with the divisional strategies, and all of this gives us the confidence that we can deliver a 20% margin by 2020 whilst continuing to grow ahead of our markets. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Kees, who's going to describe some of this in our home care division. Kees.
Okay, thank you, Graeme. And as Graeme said, I've moved from the North American business to lead the home care division for Unilever. And so I started on the 1st of January, and I've seen 25 countries in the last 5 months. So clearly running around and seeing all those countries. Great to be back in the countries where I used to live and work, from China to South Africa to Brazil and into the US. And so what I will talk about is our home care division and the business. And very clearly what I encountered is a very strong business and a great momentum and a great fundament of a business. So let's start with the strong brands. If you think about the brands, it starts with Sunlight, there where Unilever was founded to make cleanliness commonplace. Then Omo, as the Dirt is Good brand all around the world. It's actually the 3rd largest brand for Unilever after Dove and Knorr. But also very specific expert brands such as Cif, Domestos, Comfort, and then the new brands in our portfolio, 7th generation, as being a good example. 20% of the business, 80% footprint in the emerging markets. So a great momentum and a great strength of its brands. An engine for growth. Very clearly 5% growth, and that is part of our compounded growth story. So home care represents a great sense of that. If you think about it, there where we play, we're absolutely number 1 and number 2, and so leaders there where we play. What's important is that it is really driven from a very strong fundament in terms of our product superiority. Technology driving differentiation in our mixes, and you see 95% of our products are actually at parity or, more importantly, winning in the marketplace. The 5S machine, which Graeme is talking about, started in home care, and this notion about how we drive that through the business, through design for value, is absolutely everywhere. The way is that R&D, together with marketing, together with buying, are actually working together, as I said, is a real machine which drives the totality of the virtuous circle of growth and value creation. Very clearly, we know is that our role as the home care division in Unilever is to build superior value, disproportionate value from home care, driven firstly through growth, and you've seen that last year again, 4.4% growth ahead of any of our competitors. At the same time, we are moving up our margins. A strong year, 130 basis points up, once again ahead of many of the industry players. But we do recognize is that we're coming from a low base. 12.2% actually gives us the opportunity to continue to drive that value creation going up. To get to 20% by 2020 for the totality of Unilever, we actually need to deliver as the home care division, we need to get to 16%, and we're well on track to be able to deliver exactly that. We do recognize is that we are living in an ever faster change of pace in our industry. Graeme talked about the fragmentation, the hyper-fragmentation by channel, consumer groups, media, whatever way you want to cut it. And in our view, we've never been in a more exciting time of our industry. When I started working for Unilever 25 years ago as a marketeer, we always wanted to make sure is that we had one-on-one connections to talk about our functional benefit, our emotional benefit, and our social benefit in our brands. And that actually creates a relationship which was truly a relationship of trust, a relationship where we add value into their lives. And that 2.5 billion people every day, once again, around the world. And so this notion about having an ever faster change actually creates both the challenges and the opportunities in the space. And that is why we are so excited in the industry as we talk about it. Clearly, we also need to sort out the challenges. And in home care, that talks about the fear of chemicals. It talks about plastic. It talks about water use. And there's never a better moment as being the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan to make sure is that we build that into our mixes. Very critical, especially with the millennials and the Gen Z, where actually they demand to have every brand and every company to make a positive impact. And of course, the fast change in terms of how shopper behavior changes, one-on-one relationships, Dollar Shave Club being a good example in that sense. And you see that country by country, continent by continent, how fast the channel shift actually happens. Once again, a real opportunity to get a more diverse channel portfolio throughout our business. We defined our home care vision standing on the shoulders of our predecessors. As you know, Lord Leverhulme, when he started the business, he founded the business through sunlight to make cleanliness commonplace. And that is what we are taking forward in the vision of our business, to making your home a better world and making our world a better home. It's a connected home, connected in many ways, connected to society, but also digitally connected. And this is the contribution which we want to make through our business. We have 4 specific categories under the home care division with differentiated category strategies. So like we have as differentiated divisional strategies versus beauty and personal care, food and refreshment and home care, we also have within home care, we have differentiated strategic roles for the individual categories. The first one is about fabric solutions, and this is about where fabric cleaning is. We deliberately talk about it, about fabric solutions. These are the brands like Omo and Dirt is Good. But what we need to do is clothes ready to wear. This is about getting more value out of our volume. This is truly about going from product to solutions. Here in France, here in Paris, we actually have a peer-to-peer washing. It's called Skip Co-Wash. That whole, put it as Uber for washing, that peer-to-peer washing actually drives it towards more solutions, data-driven, a good example of how you go from product to solution, and that is what we will do through fabric solutions. The second one is about fabric sensations. This is about fabric and fashion. This is about where we are truly, truly passionate about the different fabrics of the clothes, and once again, that drives and helps to create the next steps of our added value in our products. Home and hygiene is where we have the brands like Domestos and Cif, and that is a great growth opportunity. You've seen it once again in the first quarter, double-digit growth, and we will continue to drive it through urbanization and penetration, more toilets, more surfaces being created. And then the last one is Life Essentials, where we have, through the acquisitions of water and air care, we will put that together under what we call Life Essentials, restoring life's most essential, giving purification in air care, in water care, and so therefore that sits also under home care. The reason why it sits under home care as well, because this is actually where you have, through the devices, a connected home, because this is where digital and truly the Internet of Things really makes sense. So those are the 4 categories which we've defined under our home care total division. Very clearly, what we see is many segments to be able to continue to drive and get to different growth opportunities. The first one is about the disruptive new formats. those who have followed this part of the industry most, especially around the fabric solutions, that it goes from bars to powders, to liquids, to unit dose, to gems. And these formats are actually continuing to drive new technologies and more differentiation in the industry. Critically important in terms of more added value throughout the market development. And that is the model which country after country we have the ability to drive. The second one is around naturals, and for sure, naturals went from in you in terms of foods to on you on personal care to around you in terms of home care. We're really leading and having the ability to continue to lead that. The acquisition of 7th generation in the US is a very good example of it. 100% plant-based cleaning, at the same time PCR in its plastic, and that for sure gets a disproportionate growth part in it. But we're also doing it in the core like in Omo Naturals, and that goes, as once again Graeme said, is part of the 70 where we're rolling it out very rapidly around the world. Naturals in China, Southeast Asia, here in France and in many parts of the world. Clearly in terms of the differentiation of the channels, portfolio and destination portfolio by channel, absolutely critical. E-commerce being part of it. Fit for e-commerce through a system of home care thinking, absolutely critical. And so therefore, we are starting to build our mixes in there. China being ahead of the world, as we all know, in terms of e-commerce. But also home care professional or do-it-yourself. Very different channels to play a role in there, which means is that we get away from traditional channels only. Of course, we will win and continue to win in traditional channels, but rapidly diverting our channel footprint. And then this more local, more global. Unilever at its best at building on our DNA of the ability to be and hyper-local, but also really getting global scale and expertise. These are good examples where Domestos goes around the world through superior mixes and through superior technology, but also in South Africa, in Domestos, specifically in terms of less flush, in terms of the water shortage in Cape Town, and very, very fast product development for the local reality. And once again, this is truly Unilever at its best, getting the best out of global and local. It actually is hyper-local. When we think about India, it's actually win in many Indias. And because of the scale of our business, we have and are uniquely placed to be able to even go within India in terms of different mixes for different parts of the country. So it goes from global to local to hyper-local, and that is the industry in which we live. The reality of technology has given us now the opportunity to truly do that. And once again, that is the exciting time we live in our industry. China as being critically important to win home care, and then Unilever in China, of course, not only in home care, but in the totality of our business, but specifically also in home care. We already have a strong business, 850 million, double-digit growth, strong brands in there. And you see here is the next steps of our innovation, naturals being a part of that. We have a strategic partnership just signed once again with Alibaba, which really drives our business disproportionately with Alibaba going forward. Not only in our fabric solutions part of the business, but also in life essentials. We co-create and co-share together with Alibaba these connected and smart devices. And that creates, therefore, a pipe into the home. What is interesting is these strategic partnerships. So let me talk a little bit about this business, which we have a strategic partnership with Miss Paris. Miss Paris is actually a shared economy around clothing. And if you think about it, actually is that garments is the second most polluting industry in the world. And therefore, the ability to make sure is that dresses are more used than the average at the moment of 1.3%, where Instagram only drives that number down because nobody wants to be seen in the same dress as it was being seen the last time. So this notion about shared economy around clothing and dresses is definitely a reality. What we do, we partner with them because hygiene in that context is the critical part. So redefine the role of detergents and laundry in this partnership. Suddenly there are 6 million of individuals which are in the platform, and that is suddenly 6 million one-on-one relationships. What a great model to then add value once again in a digitized, personalized way, and therefore we launched a new brand in China which is all about care. Delivering superior care in this shared economy where fabric and fashion sits. And a model which we believe therefore absolutely strong. Continue to drive that, we will rapidly get over $1 billion business in China, super strategic. And of course that is all driven also through the lens of our big differentiator. And that is our Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. The whole discussion around plastic, absolutely critical, and we are at the forefront of indeed changing that. I talked about 7th generation, 100% PCR already, but this is another good example in terms of cleaning the beaches in the Copacabana in Brazil and taking that plastic into a unique item, which by design is a different color of a bottle, to communicate that this bottle was created from the waste of plastic coming from the Copacabana. This actually has a huge consumer benefit in terms of consumer preference of buying, once again, especially under millennials and under Gen Z. The next one is about Domestos, and Domestos also really talks about being unstoppable in its war against poor sanitation. Can I please see the commercial?
Norovirus, Salmonella, E. coli. You make me sick. Hiding, breeding, infecting the weak. Germs, here's your bad news. I'm Domestos, and I'm coming for you. I've helped build 200,000 toilets for people who had none, and I have an unstoppable determination to kill all known germs dead. I am Domestos, and I am unstoppable.
So we do the same in India. In India, actually, in terms of Modi's program of Clean India, they built over 200 million toilets, which hardly been used because actually there is a cultural taboo on cleaning toilets. We will help to change that in terms of pick up the brush, a whole program to really make sure is that we are part not only of that cultural change, but actually driving our business rapidly forward. All that will come together, as we said, to deliver against a disproportionate value creation. 16% underlying operating margin through what we do in the supply chain to get our supply chain control cost further down to our 5S machine, 5% continue to drive efficiency through the system. We've talked about our strategic mix, both by category and through the channel lens and through the country lens. And of course, C4G in action creates not only an agility, but also a lower cost structure into our business. So that's it for home care, making your home a better world and making our world a better home. Back to Graeme.
Thanks, Kees. Cheers, thanks. I did that Domestos voiceover for free, by the way. That says ZBB in action for you. Let me try and summarize just very quickly the themes from today. With Connected for Growth, we've put in place a model that allows us to operate with greater speed, greater agility, whilst continuing to leverage the benefits of our scale. We're really excited about seizing the opportunity that sits ahead of us with that. We've stepped up innovation, and we supplement this with an acquisition model that allows us to change our portfolio faster. There's plenty of scope in our P&L to drive growth and margin, unlocking the fuel for growth, first of all, but also keeping our return on invested capital high, even as we invest in portfolio change through M&A. And we have a very clear point of view in the future. We're very excited by it, and we're continuously adapting our model accordingly. And all of that gives us a lot of confidence in our ability to deliver top and bottom line growth now and into the future. So finally, I'd like to give you a very quick update on the simplification of our legal structure and our Q2 and full year outlook. So simplification of the dual-headed legal structure is an important next step to make our business simpler, to strengthen our corporate governance by moving to one share, one vote for the first time in Unilever's history, And it's going to unlock greater flexibility, optionality for strategic portfolio change, including through equity-settled transactions or demergers. We're on track for implementation by the end of the year, and we expect documentation to go out early in Q3 ahead of the EGMs, which will take place at the end of Q3. Now, we've been engaging very extensively with the team at FTSE Russell over the course of the last few weeks and months, and from this, it's very clear to us that it's extremely unlikely that the new NV shares after simplification will be included in the FTSE UK series. Consequently, we think that our weighting in the pan-European indices will be increased. Now, we understand and appreciate that a departure from the FTSE index has negative implications for some investors that are benchmarked to it. However, simplification is the right thing for the company and our shareholders as a whole. We'll be maintaining a premium listing in London, and we would hope that those investors who are impacted have got sufficient flexibility in their portfolios to continue to hold Unilever. Now, I know that Brazil logistics strikes have been a talking point through the conference, and some businesses have said that they're still working through the impact to their numbers, but we've got a very big local business in Brazil, and we've completed our own analysis, so I want to share the impact of Brazil with you. Now, Brazil is about 6% of our global sales in Unilever. The transport strike lasted for 11 days, and during that time, we were completely unable to ship products to retailers or indeed get any raw materials into our factories. And the strike was then followed by a period of recovery, and distribution has been slowly ramping back up. The first thing to say is we don't expect to take any stock write-offs as a result of the strike. We will see an impact to Q2 sales of about 150 million euros, and the lost sales from May will not be recovered in June. So we expect a negative 60 bips impact on our reported H1 sales, or 120 bips impact on the reported Q2 sales. Because of Brazil, we think it's likely that our first half growth will now be below the bottom end of our full year range of 3 to 5% as a result. Now, in a business of our size and scale, speed bumps like Brazilian strikes can happen, and we tend to deal with them very effectively when they do. And we expect that the inventories and the supply pipeline in Brazil will refill over Q3 and Q4 of this year. So overall, we expect that we'll be able to manage the Brazil impact within our full year guidance, and I'd like to reconfirm that we expect to deliver full year growth within our 3 to 5% range. We expect to make continued progress towards our 2020 margin target, and we expect to deliver another year for you of very strong cash flow. And with that, and with only a few seconds left, we might be happy to take your questions unless Eva says we can't. Eva? We can. Okay, let's try some questions. Yes, please. Hi.
And for the business over the next sort of 3-4 years, just volume growth rather than price. And I think you alluded to the fact that the barriers to entry are reducing, and we see that in fragmenting markets. So interested in where you think scale is still an advantage and where it might be a disadvantage, given that markets are fragmenting. And the third question really was whether M&A is defensive in the sense that you're trying to preserve market share in markets that are fragmenting, and what the return on invested capital thresholds are for M&A.
Wow, that's a hell of a set of questions. So on the first one about weighted market volume growth for the next 3 or 4 years, that's a real crystal ball question, isn't it? I'll tell you where we are today, and this again is in the markets that we measure, and of course, quite a lot of volume is shifting into markets which are slightly more difficult to measure. So the very question of a reliable market growth number is one that we wrestle with in a number of our markets, and we use alternative measures to get to that. So currently, our markets are growing at around about sort of mid-twos is a good estimate. Within that, the volume growth is less than 1%. Now, I think the critical question for us in our footprint is, will we see the uptick in emerging market volumes, which we've seen over the last 2 quarters? It's been more than 4% volume growth in EMs for the last 2 quarters. Will we see that continue? And that's been a very significant shift because, as you know, our emerging market volume growth had been, around about 1% or below 1% for 5 or 6 quarters before that. So we're really seeing a reaction in terms of the elasticity of the business, but we're also seeing with 1 or 2 markets accepted, such as Brazil, such as Indonesia, we're seeing a general uptick overall in the emerging markets. So it's impossible for me to say what I think it will be. I think we will see a recovery in emerging market volumes, and you see that pull through onto Unilever's overall volumes. The question regarding M&A and what we use M&A for, we're very, very clear here. We use M&A in our bolt-on acquisition strategy. And we've done 21 acquisitions since 2015, and of course the disposal of spreads as well. We've spent about 10 billion euros. We've acquired about 3.5 billion euros of turnover within those deals. But what we're doing is we're repositioning the portfolio towards future growth vectors. It's very much around changing the growth profile and the exposure of the business. We've bought businesses in totally new business systems, completely much more digital businesses like Dollar Shave Club. We've bought businesses in the natural space, such as Seventh Generation and Blue Air. You know, emerging areas of consumer need. It's very strategic for us that we use M&A in order to do that. Now, of course, and you know, our approach to M&A and the discipline around value creation and transactions hasn't changed, and we still look at, you know, DCF calculations and ROIC, WACC crossover, etc. But all M&A, by its very nature, will take your ROIC down in the short term, and that's why I think the expansion of the margin to 20% is important. It doesn't just generate funding that we reinvest in the business to drive growth and make the change in Unilever. What it allows us to do is to continue to maintain a nice high return on invested capital. We're in the high teens at the moment, and we'd like to maintain that position. And the way to do that, whilst continuing to make the portfolio changes through M&A, is to have the margin come up, because that in turn means that we can change the portfolio but maintain a high return on our invested capital. So that's.
So let me take the question in the middle, because I think it's absolutely critically important for the industry and the attractiveness of the industry. It's where scale still matters. So start with the fact is that actually your big brands are growing fast if you do it in the right way, you know. And so it is not about big or small brands. It is about actually making sure is that you continue to be relevant. Take Dove as an example. As our biggest brand, close to 5 billion business, actually growing 8%. You know, that is a big brand growing fast. So that scale actually is still there. If you think about e-commerce, if you think about the way is that you get through search higher up in the search list, actually scale makes still a difference, as long as you do it properly, first point. Second one is scale in your portfolio also. Take naturals as a platform. The expertise around what it means in food, in beauty and personal care, and in home care, that actually is a benefit, because we really understand better what the totality of a platform of naturals is, better than anybody else, I would suggest. Then the third point is this notion of technology and skill. There is always also a next generation of technology. So whilst entry of barriers of entry have diminished, and you know the R&D and the open economy has increased, there is also this notion about where markets go into the next generation of technology. Take Dove Bar versus Dove Body Wash. Actually, the technology to have a differentiated part of the moisturization is significant. That once again goes across. And then the last one is scale in data is a huge benefit. And actually the bigger thing is that scale in manufacturing has gone towards scale in data, actually. If you want to really think about where the shift is, that is where the shift obviously happened.
Harold.
Okay, so you spent, I think you said 6 or 7 years in the US. You've now, feels like you've been unstoppable, going around 25 countries in 3 months. What are the 2 or 3 things you've picked up since you've kind of been away from those markets, which is different, maybe positive or negative?
I must say, being back in the emerging markets, I was in the Philippines, Vietnam, Myanmar, Ethiopia, and countries like that. It's unbelievable, the speed of change and the sophistication and the way is that these markets and these businesses have developed. So Vietnam, we're over 1 billion business. Same in the Philippines. When I was there in my old job in Asia, were small businesses, and you see the exponential reality in those businesses, just absolutely wow. But especially about the quality of our management. A quality of management in Vietnam, almost all Vietnamese, top class. You go to China, out of the 12, actually 10 Chinese, local, out of which 7 female, by the way. And so you see the big step up is in terms of quality of management, sophistication, and the scale of those businesses. It's just absolutely wow. And then, you know, at the next frontier, we'll talk about Nigeria, talk about Ethiopia, talk about Pakistan, you know, those things. To Graeme's point, you know, it's not for Unilever important only to have 60% in the emerging market. Actually, the breadth of that 60% and that distribution of it is a natural hedge against the volatility of emerging markets, but obviously the big growth driver, which we inherently have in the business, and it's absolutely great to be back in the emerging market.
Great. I think, unfortunately, we have to leave it at this. I hope you guys will still be friends when the football is over. Thank you very much.
Thank you.